Soon the madness will begin in UEFA World Cup qualifiers, but today's video is ranking every single UEFA nation's chance of qualifying to the World Cup. The draw will be happening on Friday the 13th of December. We will be of course live for the draw reaction because my nation Finland have zero chance of qualifying. I just need some copium. Me and my guest, we will be ranking every single nation, 5 different levels of their chance of qualifying to the World Cup in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Do Türkiye make it to the World Cup? What about Albania and Georgia? Are they going to be debutants? What about Denmark, Sweden, Norway? We'll be ranking every nation. Get your ranking tier list in the comments down below. And of course, we will be joined by a guest. I broke into Todd Bowley's bank account and got HRVizak. If you're not subscribed to HRVizak, you are living under a rock. Go subscribe to his channel. He is on the road to 250k subscribers. Hopefully one day we'll reach that level, people. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and further ado, let's get into the video. Everybody, here is the tier list. So we have 5 different levels on the tier list. Disneyland booked basically means they have qualified to the World Cup in 2026. Very good chance to see the Statue of Liberty, which is they're going to qualify, but we're not 100% sure about it. Next up is playoff anxiety. You know what that is, people. They're going to go through the playoffs. Either they're going to qualify through the playoffs or they won't qualify. Outside chance, maybe we'll give them a 25 to 30% chance of qualifying and then a 0 chance of qualifying to the World Cup. I'm just going to quickly start off by doing 0 chance for some nations. So it's going to take a while, people, but you're going to see which nations are not going to qualify. There's a lot that will not qualify. And maybe some of them you're surprised. Bosnia, I'm sorry to my guys. Yeah, we're going to the World Cup. I'll put them right there. Good.
Oh, what?
I'll put
Please
them.
tell me that's a joke.
Of course it's a joke. I'm going to have to bring them back down. Now, you were telling me backstage that you were maybe thinking of Ireland with an outside chance or 0 chance. Where would you put Ireland in this tier list? Because they are definitely a nation that has the talent. Hungary is their new manager. Nations League, it was okay. I mean, you're going to beat my nation because my nation is awful at the moment.
I would, honestly, because we got to keep in mind they still have a young crop of players. You know, I know Ferguson hasn't been as electric as he was before, but you never know at this side. I mean, you mentioned the Nations League, and obviously Finland was its own story, but the rest of their group, England and Greece, I mean, we'll get into Greece later, but they're looking really, really good right now. So depending on Ireland's draw, I would not be surprised to maybe see them sneak to the playoffs in one way or another. I'm not fully convinced that they would qualify. I just don't want to rule them out as 0 chance yet.
In the draw, they're a pot 3 team. So do we think Ireland are better than Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Norway? Because obviously the runners-up will go to the playoffs. So maybe Ireland can sneak into runners-up, but I think it's a little bit too early. I think the Euro 2028 is their best chance of qualifying to a major tournament.
I agree. 100% I agree. It's not so likely, but I don't want to say 100% 0 chance.
Some nations are still going to be in this tier list going on, and I'm going to put my nation back there because we are awful. Kosovo, I just don't think anymore. I think they had their kind of chance to qualify to the Euros, and they kind of bottled it, and I just don't Shegrova is a baller, but I don't really see it for Kosovo. Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg. I mean, they should be there with Ireland. Based on how they performed in the last qualifiers and Nations League, I was like, oh my God, Luxembourg, they might be on the rise. And then it's just gone downhill once again for Luxembourg. I don't know what's happened to them. Moldova, Montenegro. Yeah, I'm going to put them at 0 chance for Yeah, I just... They kind of missed their chances.
Feel hopeful right now, though. After the Nations League,
really?
They're feeling confident, I saw. But, that was an easy-ish group, and I don't want to fully rule them out. We saw the last playoffs against Italy. It was close. They had to face Portugal, unfortunately. They were in good form, though.
But don't you think they've regressed since that playoff against Italy and Portugal?
You see, they definitely slipped in the next Euro qualifiers, but we got to keep in mind their group was so difficult. I know the results were not convincing at all. They got hammered by England at one point. I'm going to leave them at 0 chads, but it's close. It's close with these guys.
Because they're another team that's a pot 3 team like Ireland that they kind of have an outside chance to get there in a way. And San Marino are going to the World Cup, as we all know. I think that's it. I think that's all the teams. So what nation do you think out of those 0 chance has the best chance to get maybe outside chance that now we have left out? I mean, Bosnia, it's kind of hard to see how good they are because they were in the Division A and they got absolutely smacked around. But in all honesty, I don't see them having any chance. Dzeko's getting older. I don't really see the good young talents coming through. The FA, as we know, is a mess. I think they're at a zero chance in all honesty.
I completely agree with you, unfortunately. I would love to be proven wrong on that. Bosnia have some incredible attacking options. And but to me, like within the past decade, they had one of the biggest fall-offs out of any national team. I really hate to see it and say it. They've been cycling managers. Their FA's a mess. There's a lot of drama with Ahmet Hodzic behind the scenes. It looks like he's not going to be returning to the national team. So yeah, I don't have faith in them, unfortunately. They have some really good players, but things just continue to seem unfortunate for them. And the last Euro qualifiers was beyond disappointing. They weren't even in that difficult of a group, and they got annihilated by everybody except Liechtenstein. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you look at their Nations League group, I mean, of course they're playing Netherlands and Germany, but they lost 5-2, 7-0. I mean, they're barely a pot three team as well for this draw. Barely. They almost got into the pot four, and I think that's their level at the moment for Bosnia. Put San Marino back where they belong. So any other debate there with the zero chance? I think for other teams like my nation, Finland, we're a mess. We're a goddamn mess. I don't know what to expect anymore. Our manager is sacked. I just want to see new talents, young talents, and just prepare for the Euros. That's all I want to see from Finland. Maybe the
Yeah.
other team would be North Macedonia out of these zero chance. Like you were kind of expecting the likes of maybe Kazakhstan and Luxembourg to take that next step, maybe even Iceland. But a lot of these teams have regressed a lot since the Euro qualifiers. Now, you can take what you want into the Nations League and say, okay, we're going to put this much stock into it. But for nations like Kazakhstan, Luxembourg, and North Macedonia, you still kind of have to perform in the Nations League, and some of them really didn't.
Kazakhstan and Luxembourg to me are the biggest regressions, like you just talked about. I mean, even in those playoffs, Kazakhstan got destroyed by Greece 5-0, I think. So I don't have too much faith in them. I know we were joking about San Marino saying Disneyland booked. They do have a playoff spot. It's not guaranteed, but
No,
they
it's not
do
guaranteed.
have
Yeah.
like they're high in the ranks on the playoff spot because of their Nations League performance. You know, once the time rolls around, even if they do get it, it's very unlikely. They still have to beat another team other than Liechtenstein. I know everyone wants to be hopeful for them, but it definitely is no chance, unfortunately. Iceland can put off some good fights, but at the end, I think they also will be falling short here.
And good thing you mentioned those Nations League winners because the four highest Nations League group winners will also make it to the playoffs. So still there is England, Norway, Wales, Czech Republic. Then it's Romania, Sweden, North Macedonia, and Northern Ireland. So, I mean, those two nations have the chance to make it to the playoff, but I'm sorry, when they get to the playoff, they're going to get smacked around. Maybe they can
Yeah.
pull an upset like North Macedonia did against Italy, but I really don't see it for them. Now let's get to the teams that I think are going to the World Cup. All right. They're going to the World Cup now under Thomas Tuchel. I think that's guaranteed. I think they're going to the World Cup. They're definitely going to the World Cup as well. Now, I can't lie. Other nations like this, like Netherlands, I mean, even France, you could put there. Everybody else, I'm not booked right now. There's a lot of teams where they're just up in the air. Are you okay with those six nations so far being in Disneyland booked? They're definitely going to qualify no matter what.
I mean, of course, even those last three teams you put have their question marks in a sense, but they're still too strong, and I think they'll find their way at the end.
Which team of those three? I think Portugal. I think they're now a certified qualifying team. Like you used to be, they go through the playoffs with Fernando Santos and these sort of things, but I think now they're secured and they just got too much quality. The
Yeah,
Dutch, I think they
absolutely.
are. I think the Dutch are improving and they got a lot of young talent. Maybe the question mark would actually be France, which is crazy thing to say, but there is just so much in the background that's weird with them. Are you worried with them? Let's say if France got a group, France, maybe Türkiye, and you could throw in Scotland. Would you kind of be worried for France there?
There definitely would be question marks without a doubt. I mean, everything like you were just saying behind the scenes, it hasn't been looking too good for them. Deschamps, what a career he's had managing this team, but right now they're definitely not at their peak power. But that being said, you can never ignore this side's quality, with or without Mbappe being in the squad or not, if he's performing or not. They still find a way these days, even in the Euros. People were so unconvinced with their play style. They still made it to the semifinals. So I still think Disneyland booked for sure. There's just some question marks with them. even the Netherlands definitely improving. They also made it to the semifinals of the Euros, but still, Coleman to me isn't the perfect man for the job. But in terms of qualifying, he'll do it.
Now we have a lot of nations. Now we have a lot of debate going on here with these nations. Let's start off with Albania. I don't know where to put them. This is a tough one. Do I think they have a chance? And obviously, for them and Georgia, I think they're the best opportunity for a debutant at this World Cup from the UEFA Confederation. I would put Albania at an outside chance. While they are improving and Silvino is a very good manager, I wonder if the question marks with just the goal scoring. Broja is not healthy and not firing. Where are the goals going to come from? That's my biggest issue. Like, the wingers get a lot of goals for this team. They're very organized defensively. They have a very athletic midfield who can play good football. But I wonder if they have to go through the playoff. Can they scrape away like a 1-0 victory in a playoff? Possibly.
I want to say playoffs. I want to just like throw them there, but I agree with you. I think they're still showing some lack of consistency. Of course, they topped that Euro qualifier group, which was spectacular, but at the end, they still tied points with Czechia, I believe. They still showed some random dips when they shouldn't have. They love to score bangers there, and Slovenia's an absolute upgrade. And they did put off great fights in the Euros despite being in that difficult group. Even in the Nations League, we saw inconsistencies there, randomly pushing through. It was a tough group. It was exciting with a lot of great sides meshing well, like against one another on paper. I think it's safe to put them an outside chance if you're considering it's like 25, 30%, because it really could go either way for this side. They're definitely improving. I think they should be excited.
They were very competitive at the Euros. I will give that to Albania. But now that it's basically 12 group winners plus 4 teams, that's like basically the best 16 teams in Europe. Do we want to say that Albania is a top 16 team in Europe? I can't put that right now. I think this team, I think they're going to the Euros. I mean, to the World Cup, excuse me. I think Austria are doing it. First time since 1998. Ralf Rangnick, he's just a G. That's why I call him. He's the professor for Austrian football at the moment. If they just can keep playing the way they have, I think they were so good in the qualifiers. Yeah, look, the round of 16 game against Türkiye, they went 2-0 down very quickly in that matchup. They fought back, almost got the late equalizer. Nations League went pretty decently for them. I think Austria are a very good side. I think even if they get to the playoff, they can beat any team in Europe. So I think Austria, I think they're going back to the World Cup. Now, I'm not 100% certain and saying Disneyland booked, but do not sleep on this team. A lot of teams have figured out, if we sleep on Austria, you're going to get cooked.
I definitely agree. Austria are just showing such incredible momentum right now. Ralf Rangnick, like you said, is the perfect man for the job. Of course, they are prone to slipping. For example, if they do make it to the playoffs, maybe we could see some unexpected team defeat them. But the rise is incredible. Very underrated midfield unit. They just seem like one of those dark horse teams you could bank on at this next World Cup. So I'm going to agree with you, as they definitely have a very good chance.
I can't lie. I think this team are in big trouble.
Ooh, that's
did you see? Like, they're having an emergency meeting for Tedesco because he's so terrible as a manager. They're in crisis mode. We don't even know if he's going to be the manager for these Euro qualifiers. Now, who can they hire? I don't know. If I'm going to be honest, Belgians, you got to let me know. Who would you hire as your manager? Because I think Tedesco's done out here. As soon as he had that game against Israel and drew it, done. They have the quality, no doubt, Belgium. But I can't lie. If you're a pot 2 team, you want to get Belgium in the group. In the qualifiers, get Belgium, because this team are just showing so much fragileness. And we saw at the Euros, they play down to their opponents. They'll play up to their opponents. They got so much quality in the midfield and attacking phase. But the defense is a liability. And in the qualifiers, you still need a very strong defense. And that's one thing they don't have. And we don't know who the manager is. I think there's a lot of up in the air with Belgium. I still think they're going to qualify to the World Cup because of the quality they do possess. I think, though, they're going to go through the playoffs.
I think it's really either or in terms of those two tiers. They're such a quality side, but everything you say is true, of course. At the same time, Belgium in recent years always pushed through in the qualifiers. But that being said, they had Martinez for most of those years, and now he's at Portugal. So they definitely are in crisis mode for sure. If they do end up replacing their manager, I think they have a solid chance. But this side have just shown red flags since the World Cup. Even of the veteran players don't seem as passionate for the team. De Bruyne was throwing in drama during the World Cup behind the scenes.
And at the Euros.
I think I'm going to agree with you at the end. I'm tempted to put them a tier higher, but yeah, things just aren't looking good for them right now.
Like, if they get an easy group, I still think they got the quality to finish top. But if they get a group, like if they get a Sweden or Türkiye, Serbia, even a Norway, Czechia, Belgium got to be careful. They got to hope and pray they get an easy group in these qualifiers, because if they don't, they're going to be pushed to the brink of not qualifying to the World Cup. I think it's going to be tough settings for them. Let me just put this team. They're going to go either there or there. I still think they're going to make it, but it's going to be through the playoffs because that's what you always do. I did see a rumor, though, and I don't know how true it is. You're going to have to let me know that Zlatko Dalic might be going to Qatar. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I've been seeing some rumors like the reaction tells me everything. I don't know if there's some contract dispute or if he's asking for more money. Do you have any idea about that? Because I did see a report that he might become the new Qatar manager. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Why would he leave Croatia and the job he's done?
I actually haven't seen that. I don't think he would leave unless there was some stuff going on behind the scenes. I don't think he would leave on a note like that.
Yeah.
He's already been with Croatia for too long. Of course, the fans are kind of, throwing shade at him whenever there is like a bit of a mishap in matches. It's like, oh, he's been there too long. He's relying on these same players, blah, blah, blah. I think he's going to end up staying. Maybe we could see him regress in this campaign. I really hope it doesn't happen, but maybe we will see that. And then he does get some kind of Qatar offer and the federation's already fed up with him. But I think he should be staying with Croatia for these qualifiers, at least for the first stretch. And I still want to bank on them, despite all the issues that are present with the team. People saying we're relying on the old players too much, not enough changes implemented. Attack is not looking absolutely brilliant. Croatia still find a way these days. Of course, it did happen at the Euros, but that was drama. And Italy, it was a tough group, first of all, and Italy at the same time, they drew with us. It's not like they absolutely outplayed the situation. They weren't too convincing that group stage either, just like us. So I don't know. I want to be hopeful and say we could still have a very good chance, because Croatia, since becoming independent, only having qualified for one World Cup in 2010, it's going to be tricky. I'm not the most confident at the moment. I definitely want to see how the first few matches roll around, along with the Nations League finals, but I think they have what it takes once again.
I feel like that's how you guys always are. You guys are like, oh man, we're not going well. Everything's drama in the background. We got the old players, and then you'll find a way to qualify. It's just Croatia at the end of the day. You guys just have something to complain about. If it's not perfect,
true, yeah.
You'll find some small minor detail to complain about. Now, of course, the Euros didn't go as well as everybody was hoping for, but I mean, you're basically 30 seconds away from making it to the round of 16 and knocking out Italy. So at the end of the day, was it terrible? No. Do you want to see new players? Possibly, but you're still strong enough. Luckily, you're a pot 1 team. If you're a pot 2 team, then I would be a little bit worried. I think Czech Republic are outside chance. I don't have much confidence in them. I think they are always going to be a difficult team to play against. And Hasek and the manager, and obviously they have Suchek and a lot of good players, but I just don't see it for Czech Republic. I don't think they're a top 16 team in Europe. I think they'll make it to the playoffs, but won't qualify to the World Cup. You kind of agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, they did top the Nations League group, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, still not much convincing signs for this side. Of course, they have some great individuality, and they did get unlucky with Schick getting injured during the Euros, but yeah, they still finished bottom at the end regardless, when many expected them to thrive. They had a debutant in their group, Georgia, and they weren't able to beat them. I still think this side are showing red flags, without a doubt. They are building momentum throughout that Nations League campaign. Again, based on their group, I don't see them really, being able to go head-to-head with some of these sides consistently.
Denmark, another team where it's just like you don't know what to expect, really, with Denmark. Now, they have a new manager, and he's only been there for 2 games, Brian Riemer, who was the former Anderlecht manager, if memory serves me right. I don't know what to expect. I think they're kind of in a generational change. The likes of Eriksen kind of moving on, and then you have new players like Morten Human, Matt O'Reilly from Brighton. They got a lot of talented youngsters. Now, the good thing for them is Mikkel Damsgaard is balling out, who was supposed to be balling out ever since his Euro campaign that he had in 2021. But now this season, he's really thriving, and I want to see how well he does. I still think they're a talented team. I think they will go through the playoffs and still qualify to the World Cup, but I'm not I'm not at that level as like an Austria and Croatia with Denmark.
Underdogs of the Euro 2020, basically kind of downward spiraled since then. They had great qualifier campaigns, but even in the last one, they topped it, but they were going toe to toe for most of the campaign with some of these underdogs. I'm not fully convinced. They have some great individuality. They definitely have a chance to qualify, but yeah, I agree. Probably with playoff anxiety.
Okay, then is it also Georgia, another debutant, possibly outside chance? I would love to say they could qualify. I think their Nations League was up and down. I think they played actually good football, but they're just not converting their chances. Can I see them qualify to the playoffs? Yes. The only problem for Georgia is they are a pot three team. So they're going to get a difficult group. Now, can they get runners up over like a Norway or another team? Possibly. Yeah, I could see that for Georgia. They just got to be more clinical. They got the momentum. Can they pull off an Iceland, a debutant at the Euros, be a debutant at the next World Cup? Maybe. I think it's an outside chance for them. It would be an awesome story, though.
All the potential debutants, I think them and Albania by far have the best chance. They've both been playing some very exciting football. Both fans of each nation should be very encouraged that they do have some possibility to go forward to their first World Cup, but it is going to be tricky at the end of the day. Georgia have what it takes, though. They defied so many odds during the Euros. I know it was third place, but still being able to defeat Portugal, even if they weren't playing their best lineup, you saw how seriously Portugal took that game. Ronaldo really wanted to get on that score sheet.
Yep.
So I still think Georgia have what it takes, but it's going to be difficult. Outside chance. I wouldn't rule them out, but they are my favorites to make it at the end.
Do you think they've kind of lost that element of surprise now, though, that they made they made the run in the Euros, they've done so well in the Nations League? Do you think they're kind of losing that element of surprise that now more teams are taking notice of them?
I don't think so. I think overall they've been honestly building momentum. Like their like progressive stretch has been going all the way from the last World Cup qualifiers. Remember when they defeated Sweden all the way back,
Yep.
like when Kvaratskhelia really made his name out there? I think that they really have been like showing up and down since then, but overall have been showing that they can compete with these top teams and definitely have those few surprise elements. Of course, some very well-known players on there. Most people know about the goalkeeper, Mamardashvili and Kvaratskhelia. I think that overall they haven't really lost that identity. I think they definitely still can throw off some of these teams.
Well, the one thing they need is not to be drawn with Spain, because if they get drawn with
Absolutely.
Spain, they're getting smacked around every single time for our Georgians out there. All right, the next team then is Greece. Now, Greece have been in the mud for many years, even drawing with Liechtenstein at home. It's just been horrible for Greek football, but maybe we're seeing a renaissance right now. Jovanovic has done an incredible job. They have a lot of talented youngsters like Jolis, this guy from Club Brugge, is a baller. And they did superbly well in the Nations League. Now, it's all about, can they keep up that momentum? They beat, obviously, England away. They obviously destroyed Finland. They're beating Ireland. Now, can you go toe-to-toe with nations like a Czech Republic, with a Croatia? Can you compete against them? I think Greece can make it to the playoffs, but I would still say it's an outside chance. I think for the next Euros, they're going to qualify. What do you think?
This is where we have disagreement, I think.
Okay.
I think Greece have that playoff anxiety tier because
Oh, wow.
they've really been improving for me. I mean, Jovanovic has been doing such a great job. Yes, he got defeated by England 3-0, but prior they beat them at Wembley. And even before his arrival, like Greece didn't qualify for the Euros, yeah, but it really was down to a penalty shootout for underestimating Georgia, who we just talked about. Yeah. Even in that qualifier campaign, they were put in a tough group and they still put off some great results, even going toe-to-toe with France. So I want to say they're a playoff team. They, like you said, they have some great individuality. This is some great Greek football we're seeing. Palvidis is also an incredible striker. I'm going to say playoffs, but I understand why you would put them at outside chance as well. Like, history is not on their side, at least recently.
I'll give you this card. This is your bingo card in a way that we're going to go with Greece. Do you think, though, they can qualify to the World Cup? Do you think they're a 15, 16 best team in Europe at the moment?
I think they have what it takes to prove it. I don't think they've like solidified that stance yet, which is why I'm kind of putting them at playoffs. But I really think they can catch some of these teams off guard depending on their draw. I mean, I hate to say it, like truly, it burns my soul, but like I would be afraid for Croatia if they were put in a group with them, truly.
Wow. I think, Greece are a pot two team. So Yeah, if you're Croatia, you kind of don't want Greece. That would
Yeah.
be obviously a hostile environment as well. So I think I think Greeks are very sort of now they're kind of loving football again. They were, basketball nation for many years. Obviously, Giannis is doing well, but now with the, Olympiacos winning the Conference League, I feel like now Greek football is on the up again, and now they have a
Yeah.
lot of talented youngsters. So I think now they got to use this momentum, though. If you don't qualify for this World Cup, at least make it to the playoff. But then you certainly have to qualify for the next Euros. They haven't made a major tournament since 2014.
History's bad, but I think they're showing a lot of great signs of momentum, upward trajectory. I think they have what it takes to make playoffs minimum.
Do you think this team have lost momentum? Do you think their era has kind of died down for Hungary? I think the Euros were such a disappointment. Nations League was okay-ish. They weren't a tough group, of course, but I feel like they're another team like Georgia where people were surprised by how well Hungary were doing. They destroyed obviously England away. The Euros were terrible. Now teams are kind of figuring them out. Marco Rossi maybe is on thin ice. Who knows? And I think for these qualifiers, they're still a very good team. They got players like Gerkis and obviously Soboslai. I don't think they're going to make it to the World Cup, though. I think they'll make it to the playoff and be a runners-up, but not to qualify to the World Cup.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you. Hungary have been showing some incredible tales lately, but still just always seem to fall short at the Euros. So many people are saying this was the dark horse to look at. And then we saw those friendlies prior to the tournament, and they just collapsed, even losing to Ireland, I believe, from my memory. So, yeah, it's not looking good for Hungary. Definitely have plummeted a bit, but I wouldn't want to rule them out. I think outside chance is the perfect tier for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I don't think they have zero chance, in my opinion. I think that would be a little bit disrespectful to what Hungary have achieved in recent memory. Okay, are they going to finally qualify? For the love of God, please, Italians, please. You're going to be playing a World Cup in the United States. All the Italian Americans are hoping and praying you qualify. You can't put them at 100% chance because they haven't qualified since 2014. Now, for them is they cannot go to the playoff though, because then that PTSD is going to kick in ASAP. The memories of North Macedonia, the memories of Sweden are all going to kick into this side. But I think Spalletti finally learned. I thought he was terrible at the Euros for his decision-making and lineups and all that sort of stuff. I think now he's figured out, let's just play a back five. We got the players to do it. They got so many talented youngsters. Retegui is on fire. But, I mean, can you put them at 100% yet? No. They got to prove it to us. I think, though, they're going to qualify. This is now a great opportunity for them. They're a pot one team. I think Italy are going to World Cup finally. Hopefully.
I completely agree with you. It's still too uncertain to put them at Disneyland booked, but yeah, they're showing signs of improvement. Still not like peak Italia like we've seen in previous years when they were winning World Cups, but are definitely, like you mentioned, Retegui, Bastoni in the back line. They have very good individuality there. If they click well and, they do show some signs of improvement compared to the Euros, because I do think they were not convincing there, despite making it to the round of 16 over Croatia. Like I said, to me, Italy versus Croatia really was like battle of disappointment in that group. Both sides were not really that consistent throughout, and they got slapped by Switzerland. Very good chance. We should be seeing them. They have what it takes without a doubt, but based on the last two qualifier campaigns, that playoff PTSD, if they make it anywhere near those playoffs, I'm worried for them.
I honestly, I would not want to be Italian. If they make it to the playoffs again, I would not have any hope. I'm sorry. Even though it's like a new, fresh team and no Mancini and this, you cannot go through the playoffs once again, Italy. It would be such just PTSD kicking in. I don't want to say it, but I think they're going to be fine. A World Cup in the United States, it has to be Italy there. If there isn't, a shame. Shameful behavior once again, but they will qualify this time around. Now, what about Norway, right? This is kind of their golden generation. I'm going to put them at playoff anxiety. I think they got the talent, man. They got the talent, but the one thing that's going to be their downfall is the defense. The defense is a liability, and Solbakken is still the manager. They got Ødegaard, they got Haaland, and they got Antonio Nusa. They got so many good players, but I can't guarantee you that they're going to qualify to the World Cup. I think they're going to go through the playoffs. Now, in the playoffs, who knows what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen in that situation, but surely now this national team has to prove themselves. You got humiliated, in my opinion, in the Euro qualifiers by Scotland. Obviously, you beat Georgia, but you didn't even qualify to the last Euros. You weren't a top 24 team, so they have, on paper, they should be making it to the World Cup, but you can't do that with Norway.
Honestly, I would have put them at outside chance prior to the Nations League. Now I'm going to put them at playoffs anxiety. This side have the ingredients to succeed. Come on, they have one of the best strikers in the world. And they still have not qualified for any major international tournament with him. Last tournament was 2000, right? Euro
Yep,
2000.
2000 Euros. Yep.
So 24 years. If they don't qualify for this World Cup, it'll be 26. It needs to be now for these guys. I mean, Haaland's still young, but like, come on. He's really like at his peak momentum right now. Yes, I know Manchester City are a different story, but for the national team in the recent Nations League matches, he was explosive, getting loads of goals. Second top goal scorer of the tournament, I believe. This side have what it takes, and they do get some results in these qualifier campaigns, but always just seem to fall short. If Haaland's injured, it's going to be a blow. If Odegaard gets injured again, it's going to be a blow. The attack is there. Like you mentioned, the defense is a problem. And Slovakia being at the helm, I'm not too sure. But yeah, playoff anxiety. Like when you look at this team, you got to throw them in that tier, I think.
But the problem for them is they're a pot 2 team. What if they get Scotland again? Do you think PTSD is going to kick in and they're going to lose to Scotland at home once again and McSauce scores a game winner in the 90th minute?
Didn't they lose to Scotland also in the Euro playoffs in 2020?
Yes.
Was that no, it was Serbia. Sorry, it was Serbia.
Yeah, Serbia.
That head-to-head matchup will be really good, but I could see both sides like beating each other once there. That's what I'm saying. Like if Norway come against a team that like has their stuff together, even if they're not really considered the best on paper, they get troubled. It happens way more often than not. So I'd be concerned, but at the same time, with the talent they have, they got to be hopeful, right? That it's finally going to happen.
I mean, if I was Norwegian, I would be bald by now because of the anxiety this team gives to me. I honestly cannot believe it. Like, even Finland have qualified to Euros. Even Iceland have made it to the quarterfinals of the Euros since Norway have been at a major tournament. Now, they did qualify for the last World Cup in the United States in 1994, and they were in that famous group that all teams were on 4 points and the same goal difference. It was wild like that. Norway, if you're Norwegian, you should go straight to the FA and say you must qualify. Hands down. They have to qualify for this. Okay, at least make it to the playoff, right? Can we both agree? At least make it to the playoff.
Yeah, they have what it takes, of course, for that.
Another team that have kind of regressed, Poland. I don't see any hope for them. Lewandowski getting older. I think that kind of old group that they had, they're all sort of dwindling down. No Szczesny anymore to bail them out in games. I think Skorupski is a quality goalkeeper, but if Lewandowski's not firing, they have a couple of, decent youngsters, but I just don't think Poland are at that same team that they were from 2016 to 2020. I don't think they're that side anymore, where you could definitely say top 10 team in Europe. Now, not even top 15.
I've never been like fully convinced in this side. Even during their like more peak powers in tournaments, I always kind of threw them at the bottom, and most people were upset with what I had to say, but I ended up being right. Only the World Cup, they made it to the knockouts recently. Also, Euro 2016, they had a decent run, but still, in that tournament, Lewandowski really wasn't that great. For the national team, even if he's tearing it up at Barcelona, for the national team, he sometimes does go missing. It's just not the same player. Obviously, he does have those clutch moments from time to time, but it's not always consistent enough. And yes, they did have Fernando Santos in the last Euro qualifiers where he did get sacked halfway through the campaign, which was definitely the right call. They were atrocious with him. And we did see some improvements under Pro Beers. I don't want to fully rule them out. Like, part of me wants to throw them in playoffs because, like, they really still do have, like, some luck going their way in the qualifiers. But at the end of the day, you're right. They are regressing.
Now they're a pot 2 team. So they're going to have to go up against a top nation in Europe. Do you think they can outsmart some teams possibly? Or do you think it's just like a runners-up and that's best for them and they go to the playoff?
That's what I'm saying. I think, like, maybe they can put some kind of luck and make it to the playoffs. And depending on the draw for that, they push through. I mean, that's what we saw in the last 2 qualifier campaigns, I believe, right?
Last Euros, they beat Sweden in the World Cup 2022 qualifiers. They beat Wales away on penalties. So, I mean, they are
find a
playoff
way
merchants.
usually. Like, part of me wants to, like, throw them in the playoffs and say they just make it, because if they're able to at least, defeat the pots 3 and 4 teams in their group, they could be set.
Then we'll move Poland there. They got the history. At least Poles, you got the history, guys. You are basically just a B-Tech Croatia at the moment. You're playoff merchants. That's what they are. Like, that's what they are. I mean, they have some decent players like Zalewski and these sort of guys, but I just don't see that same team that we saw from 2016 to 2020. I think Romania are like this buffer here. They're somewhere between these two teams. I think they are a good team. I think they had a good Euros. Did they get exposed against the Dutch? Possibly, yes. They're maybe not that quality of a side. And how much can you take into account? They're in the Division C of the Nations League. Are they really that like top tier team in Europe, like a top 16 team in Europe? I don't think so. I think they can make it to the playoffs though. And they're a pot 2 team. I think they could surprise, but to qualify to the World Cup, still don't give them a chance.
Yeah, obviously this is not the same Romania we saw in the 90s without a doubt.
Of course not.
I really like this team though. It's really underrated bunch, and now they got Lucescu, and he's a legendary coach. And he was, I believe, managing Romania 40 years ago in the 80s, and he's taken them to tournaments there. He has a great resume. Is he a bit old? I don't know. Maybe age will catch up to him here, but you know, he could adapt some incredible philosophy. But at the end of the day, you're right. Nations League group really wasn't that much of a test. And not to mention their Euro qualifier group. Don't get me wrong. I was very impressed with what they did there. And I was proven wrong there. I said that they would flop, and they, you know, topped it over Switzerland. But at the end of the day, look at the rest of the group other than Switzerland. Like Kosovo, Israel, still not enough of a test for me to convince like Romania is there. Yes, they got that massive win against Ukraine in the Euros, but that was their only win in the tournament. Romanians 100% should be hopeful, but to say they're like for sure making it to the playoffs, I think they need to get lucky in this draw.
Even though I think they are still, because they're still a pot 2 team, but if they go up against like a Slovenia, Georgia, that would be tough from pot 3 for Romania. Do I think Romania are better than Georgia right now? I think they're 50-50. I would give the slight edge to Georgia, but you know, Romanians are improving. It's just a matter of, okay, you dominate the Division C. Now let's see how you can do against the top teams in Europe. That will be the sort of test for this Romanian side. The Scots, I think they're there. I still think they're a good team. Do they have a chance to make it to the World Cup? 100%, but I think they're an outside chance.
Really had a bad year, but in 2023, they were marvelous. I mean, they topped the Euro qualifier group. Eventually, Spain caught up, but they even beat the Euro champions there. So, you know, if this team are clicking, they do impress. Scott McTominay just randomly comes in clutch for them, and they have some other great individual players. I'm still not fully convinced that they'll do it. It's been a very long time for them since they have qualified for the World Cup. And even if they do, they have never made it to the knockouts in the tournament. They've always been grouped.
They're another team that they're playoff merchants. If they make it to the playoff, you don't want to play them. That would be a very tough team to go up against. If Scott McSauce is not scoring, because I have no hope in Lyndon Dykes or Shea Adams or any of these forwards, if Scott McSauce ain't scoring, who's going to get the goals? That's the kind of issue for Scotland. They could be a very good defensive team, but you still need some attacking prowess. Yes, you had in the last qualifiers in the Euros. In the World Cup qualifiers, it's going to be tough again. I think Scotland can surprise, but and don't even get me started on these guys. Yeah, I'll put them here for respect, but the LA Clippers of Europe are not qualifying to the World Cup. I'm not going to give them a zero chance, but you cannot. I mean, how on earth? They still have the same manager over and how many times does he have to fail to realize, oh, he's not the guy? Why did they still have him?
I mean, I don't know the full answer, of course, but I think part of it is just his legacy with, you know, his
of course.
At the same time, like, yeah, you're right. He's already proven to be a bit of a liability. This side are very unpredictable. Like at the end of the day, they're still disappointing, but I was very surprised with how they went out in the Euros. I thought they'd be scoring the goals and conceding, but instead they weren't scoring much and were, you know, holding off an okay defensive display, but still falling short. At the end of the day, Pixie's still failing. And we've even seen Tadic retire from the national team, and it broke out that the main reason why he did go was because of Pixie. Obviously, he's getting older, but at the end of the day, he's still one of their most quality, experienced players, an absolute legend for the team as well. So it says a lot. And they have an incredible attacking force, but, you know, with Mitrovic now in Saudi Arabia, of course, he's still getting numbers there. But as we see for the national team, he did slow down a little bit. Of course, they still got Vlahovic, Luka Jovic. I'm not so convinced in this Serbia side. I really want to see them qualify, and we could see some miracle like we did in the last World Cup qualifier campaign where they topped Portugal at the very last match day in Portugal as well, which was unreal. They definitely have a chance to qualify, but even if they do it, the way they're going, it seems like it's already a guaranteed group stage finish.
I don't know what to say with this team. Everybody puts their stock into them, and they're like, yes, they're gonna do it, Serbia. They're gonna prove us wrong, and then they're gonna flop one more time. And you're like, they flopped again. Who to blame? Not Pixie. All right, let's blame the FA. It's clearly the manager. The manager has flopped over and over again. World Cup 2022. You were supposed to be dark horses. Flopped. Euros. Maybe some dark horse magic. Who knows? Flopped again. I mean, you can't put any stock into this team. The only player I want to see do well is Samardzic from Atalanta. The guy's a baller. That's the only player I want to see, because if Tadic is now retired, I want to see Samardzic. The guy is a quality player who can create for Vlahovic and Mitrovic, but you put any stock into this side, they will flop for you. So my advice, if you're a stockbroker or investing into something, don't invest into this national team. You will go broke. Now, can they make it to the playoff? Of course, because they're still got the quality and they got the individual talent. But once they face some adversity, they will crumble. I don't know what it is with this national team.
Even in the Euro qualifiers, I was seeing like no one was that gassed that they ended up qualifying. Like all the Serbian fans were kind of like, yeah, cool, but like we still sucked. It was still an awful campaign. Yeah, cool, we beat Lithuania and Montenegro, but like second to Hungary,
they had an easy group.
Getting beaten to them twice, it's not good. So change is needed. And to answer your question earlier, now I'm kind of realizing maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I think Pixie's just being still used because of people remembering that incredible moments like against Portugal in the World Cup qualifiers. But that was too long ago. Change is needed now.
You have to know when to let it go. And clearly the FA of Serbia don't know when to let it go. And obviously he was a very legendary player. But as a manager, you have one good moment. One. Do we need to talk about the amount of L's he has taken? I just don't think it for Serbia. I really don't. Slovakia are a similar situation. I would put them outside chance. I think they are a good team. Calzona is a very good manager. But a lot of their players are getting old. Like a lot of them, like Kuchka, Skriniar, you don't know what sort of health he's at. You see them at the Euros. They're surprising. They play a very good brand of football because Lobotka is a baller. I think they can make it to the playoff, but that's where it will stop for me. Do I think they're better than maybe Ukraine? Yes. Are they better than Poland? No. I would have Greece over Slovakia at the moment. So outside chance for Slovakia.
I'm tempted to put them in playoffs. They definitely are improving. But, I mean, we got to keep in mind, they nearly upset England in the Euros. Like, all it took was a Bellingham bicycle kick.
Oh, it was so close to a magical moment for Slovakian football. That would have been awesome.
I know. They're a really good side. Like, it really depends on their draw. It's just not the most convincing team to say, like, hey, you've got the history to back yourselves up that, like, you could, have that playoff anxiety. They could frustrate teams. I could see them having a good campaign without a doubt. I'm just not fully convinced that, like, you can say it's, any closer than an outside chance.
What about Slovenia then? Slovenia are an interesting team because I feel like they got the individual quality, but do I dare put them here? You know what? I might. I can't lie.
Wow.
I think I might put Slovenia there. I think compared to the other teams like Hungary, Slovakia, Serbia, I think Slovenia are sort of on the... Now, do I think they can qualify? Yes. I would actually kind of put them at 50-50. I'm not going to put too much stock into the Nations League, but if Šeško is there, then I have all belief. Now, if Sporar can do his job and actually show up sometimes for the national team, that would be great. But you see a lot of these players are balling out. Elsnik at Crvena Zvezda playing really good football. Slovenia got a lot of underrated players. It's about what they get in the group, though, because they are still a pot 3 team. That's my biggest worry. But I think they're better than some of the pot 2 teams in the draw. And I think they can get to the playoff and they might shock somebody. Do you think I'm crazy?
No. I honestly, I agree with you. Like, it is a bit wishful thinking, but they have what it takes. Like, we saw them really go toe-to-toe with Denmark in the Euro qualifiers. Nations League, they kind of continue to prove that identity, like that they do have a good defense.
They did lose twice, though, to Norway. That's the only thing that happened in the Nations. Yeah.
I was about to say, only Norway really was like the kicker. But again, we already talked about that incredible attack. But at the Euros, they held off Portugal to a penalty shootout. Oblak saved a Ronaldo penalty. Like, these guys frustrated the hell out of the Portuguese. Yeah, they didn't do it at the end. They missed all their penalties. But, like, this side do know how to hold off many countries. You know, if they don't have like some kind of explosive attacking unit, like we just saw with Norway in the Nations League. Of course, Portugal had one too, but we saw they weren't really clicking too well at times at the Euros. I do think that Slovenia have what it takes to defend their way through and maybe get a playoff spot. Maybe they will get too many draws, and that is what could halt them from getting a playoff spot. But if they do make it to the playoffs, continue that adaptation of, you know, just focusing on the defensive game, they have what it takes.
Don't sleep on Slovenia, people. They could surprise. They got the good defense. They got the world-class goalkeeper. They got an awesome striker. And that's the recipe for success. Now, the only issue is if Šeško's not firing, I can't trust anybody else on this team, especially Sporar. After what I saw in the Euros, hyping him up, I said, no mas. My neighbors. You're going to have to... Where would you put them?
I would put them at playoffs. No way outside chance. No way this time.
Okay, so do you think are you going to take into account what they did in the Nations League? Because at the end of the day, it is still the Division C. They destroyed some teams in that group. I think they are a damn good team. I made a video about them. I think Sweden are a good team. I just want to see how they go up against the top nations. Now you've done your thing. We can clearly see you're a very good side against Division C, maybe Division B, who knows. They're now on the upward trajectory, and they got a lot of informed players. The only issue I would have is how will their defense go up against the top teams? That's my only question mark. I think their attack and midfield can go toe-to-toe with a lot of nations, and I think they can make it to the playoff, and I think they can qualify to the World Cup.
I agree. The biggest question mark is that defense. That attack, man, like, it really cannot be ignored. If we're putting Norway at playoffs, like, I feel like we have to put Sweden. It really, to me, they don't always qualify for these major international tournaments, but like, to me, it was a bit of an upset that we didn't see them at the last World Cup and Euros, because we knew that they had the quality. It really was just down to the management, and now they have their new guy, and they seem to be doing well. Yes, I know it's just the Nations League. Master classes against Azerbaijan and Estonia don't mean all that much, but they did top the group over Slovakia, who we just talked about have been improving. Yes, they still need to handle a top national team, but I think this side have what it takes to get a playoff spot. And if they make it to the playoffs, they're definitely one of those contenders based on their attack.
If Croatia gets Sweden, you would be scared, right?
Yes.
In the group? Yep, exactly.
Yes,
so that would be a team. I think even Belgium and Sweden, even though they met at the last Euro qualifiers, I think Belgium would be worried about Sweden. The thing is, you're going to score against them. They're going to give up chances. Their defense is not that great, and the goalkeeper is not great, but I think the attack can go toe-to-toe with many teams. And now I think with the Jon Dahl Tomasson, the new manager, is that they're a bit more expressive with their play. They're not just sitting back and counterattacking. No, they're taking the game to opponents, and that's a recipe for success for them. So I think Sweden are back. They were in the mud. I made fun of them. They were in the banter era, but now I think Swedish football is back, even though that hurts me to say as a Finnish person, but I can't deny it. The players they got, they are just balling out at the moment. Do we put the Swiss there or playoff anxiety? Where would you put the Swiss?
I think playoff anxiety. Of course, they have like a lot of history qualifying for tournaments. They were pretty underwhelming in the Nations League. They are going through a bit of a transition period. Maybe I don't have enough to back my opinion on that, but I don't think that they are like 100% guaranteed these days. They finished fourth. It was a difficult group, but like one that they could have handled. They always beat Serbia head to head. They couldn't do it this time. It just goes to show that there are some question marks with this team.
But do you think when it gets to like those pressure sort of games, like in the Euros or in World Cup qualifiers or World Cup, they always show up Switzerland?
Absolutely. And in the actual tour, yeah, of course. Like in the Euros, they were fantastic, making it to the quarters, only getting knocked down on penalties. But in the Euro qualifiers prior, we talked about they bottled it to Romania.
True.
So yeah, they qualified at the end, of course. Like maybe they weren't taking it all that seriously because the pressure wasn't on them. But it's still a statement that goes to show like this side are just randomly falling asleep when they shouldn't be.
I think the Swiss are still a very good team. Obviously, Murat Yakin is still the manager, and they got obviously Granit Xhaka and Doa and these sort of players. The Nations League didn't go so well. I think they didn't get a single win in that group, if memory serves me right. So, yeah, it was a tough group. You had Spain, who, of course, the best team in the world. I think Swiss are still a good team. You can never, like, as soon as you sleep on these guys, they qualify to the World Cup. Now, where would you put Türkiye? This is always a nation you don't know what to expect. They got, obviously, Yildiz and Guler and so many quality players. Montella is doing a very good job. but it's Turkey at the end of the day. They haven't qualified for World Cup since 2002. That's the last World Cup appearance. Now, if Turkey made it to the World Cup, oh, we're getting fireworks. That would be awesome to see. I think they're a playoff anxiety team, though. I don't think they're an outside chance. I think they're really on the rise here, but certainly
Yeah.
to qualify to World Cup, nope. But playoffs, they're there.
Yeah, it's too early to say very good chance. I mean, they're showing a lot of progression, no doubt about it. And the quality on paper, this team are on the rise. They have an incredible young generation. They should be taken seriously without a doubt. But like you said, it's Türkiye. Like if the eyes are on them, you know something could kind of fumble. We saw it at Euro 2020. Everyone was saying these guys are the dark horse. Worst team in the Euros. I really want to see them push through. It's a really exciting team. Like, honestly, one of my favorites to watch right now. They play incredible attacking football. They're not too, mindful when it comes to defensive displays, but still, you got their defenders pushing through, getting incredible results. We saw Demiral against Austria in the Euros, scoring 2 goals against them. They love their attacking football, and they're a very exciting team. Montella, he adapts that Turkish philosophy as well. He's inconsistent himself, but he pushes through with them. They have the quality. Playoff seems fair.
Yeah, I would say it's fair for them. Even though I think it was the last game against Montenegro, they bottled it.
Oh my
If I'm
God,
not,
I forgot about
yeah,
that.
they bottled it. So again, when expectations are there, they bottle it. But I think throughout those Nations League, you saw they were still a good team. Now, Autokoglu as well, Benfica. In the past, like for the Euros in 2020, you could talk about they were the dark horses this time around. But now I think with this new generation, I think it's something different with these players. Now it's just about, can you live up to expectation? That's just going to be the key thing. And I think they are going to still. Do I feel like they can win a group? Possibly to the playoffs. They're going. I think this team they're done. They're toasted. I don't think Ukraine are making it to World Cup. Yeah, I don't see any hope for them. I think their manager Rebrov, they have good players like Zinchenko and Dovbyk and Shankov and Zubkov and all these sort of players, but it's just what I've seen recently in like 2024 is a team that is not living up to expectation. That's my biggest issue with Ukraine. And I don't think they're better than Türkiye, Sweden, Slovenia. I think they've regressed a lot compared to what I was expecting for the Euros. And I think they're kind of going through a downward spiral for them. So I think they're outside chance.
It's tough. Like I totally understand what you're saying. There's no denying they've regressed, but when you look at the individuality they have, like they should be one of those playoff anxiety teams at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
When you judge on their form, of course, it hasn't been the most convincing from them. Yeah, I don't know. Like even in the Euro qualifiers, they were pretty good. Like they were so unfortunate to fall short to Italy at the end.
Yeah. No, of course
So
they still beat Iceland in the playoff, and I was expecting that, of course. But it's just like when they go up against these teams like Slovakia, like Georgia, they're still at that same level. So I'm not going to put them above like a Slovakian Georgia, in my opinion, for Ukraine. Whereas maybe in
yeah,
the past, you could put them there.
I think I
Above them.
agree with you. Yeah, when you put it that way, absolutely. And we also got to keep in mind history is not on their side. They haven't qualified for a World Cup since 2006, and that's their only
Yep.
World Cup, I think.
Yep, that's their only World Cup appearance. So I don't think they're going to qualify this time around. Then the final team is Wales. Is Craig Bellamy going to do it? Craig Bellamy. You know what? Playoff anxiety. They're on the
Wow.
rise. They're on the rise once again. I think Craig Bellamy, he might be the truth. He did top a group with Türkiye in the Nations League. They're a pot 2 team, so they're still, longer the days of Bale and Ramsey and these sort of guys. They're done. They're not at that level anymore. But if you're Welsh, I think you should be very excited from the football they're playing. Do I think they're a top 16 team in Europe? No. But I think Craig Bellamy is taking them on the right track, and I believe Wales are a better team than Serbia, than Romania, than some of these nations. Now, if you look at the Nations League campaign, it was a little bit inconsistent. They had 3 wins and 3 draws, but they got some quality players like Brennan Johnson and these sort of guys. But maybe I'm believing the hype. Maybe I'm going crazy with Wales.
I actually watched their last match against Turkey. Like they played very well defensively, of course, but Turkey blew some chances. Atokolu even missed a penalty.
Oh,
But
yeah.
still, like they have shown like to go toe to toe with them. Very physical team. To me, I don't know. Like I understand the hype, but like if you're throwing Wales up there, then like I think you got to throw the likes of even Slovakia and Romania as well. That's why I'm still like too hesitant to put them at playoff anxiety.
Maybe I'm drinking too much of the juice, the Craig Bellamy juice. I'll put them back at outside chance. But I think they have a better chance than Czech Republic, than Ireland, maybe even Albania. I feel like Wales are better chance than those sides. And they're a pot 2 team. So, you know what would be a fast... Because obviously the draw is next Friday. A great group would be Switzerland, Wales, and Albania. That would be a fire group. Any last changes? That's our ranking, people. So we kind of have 9 teams that are certain to go, and then a whole mess between playoffs and outside chance. So I think it just shows that there's a lot of depth in Europe, as we always know when it comes to UEFA qualifiers. But we could get a surprise team here. Don't be shocked about like Greece or Sweden qualifying, Slovenia qualifying to the World Cup.
Part of me feels like we were a little bit too conservative, like not putting a lot of teams in that second tier for very good chance. But at the same time, like you got your positives for each of them, you got your doubts. Like it's really going to be toe to toe. And like you mentioned, the depth in Europe is insane. I think this is going to be one of the more competitive World Cup qualifier campaigns from UEFA, without a doubt.
Do I think Belgium, Denmark, could you put even maybe Switzerland in the very good chance to go to the World Cup? 100%, I would say that. But a lot of teams have flaws, people. Don't be shocked. We're going to get some shockers here in the Euro qualifiers. Now, it will obviously depend on the draw, but this is our tier list ranking before the draw begins next Friday. And please, God, just give Finland an easy group. Thank you all for watching. And of course, a big thanks to HRVizak for joining the channel and the video. Remember, people, we'll be live next week, Friday, for the live draw reaction. Get your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think your nation will qualify to the World Cup? Remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Remember to follow me on all the socials. During the World Cup qualifiers, I will be having a lot of reaction videos. So if you like that sort of content, this is the channel to be. But have a beautiful day. Stay safe in this crazy world. And until next time, adios.